Hello everybody, I'm Rene Ramos, director of the Lynn and Louis Wolfson II Florida Moving Image Archives, and this is Rewind, the show that looks back on Florida's past with historic film and video. It's time for another trip back into the past, so sit back, relax, and enjoy another episode of Rewind.
Is this 1941 revisited? For these pilots flying their warbirds, it is. Tonight, we'll meet the Confederate Air Force, an unusual group of men who won't let us forget the glory days of aviation history. We'll also look at more down-to-earth transportation, the popular but controversial moped. And Joe Averill will talk with the man who lives in the White House, Jimmy's son, Chip. These are the scenes we bring together for tonight's Montage. Good evening, I'm Ralph Rennick. Have you ever wondered what happens to fighter planes after a war? To find out, we joined a Memorial Day weekend crowd watching a unique spectacle at the airport in Titusville, Florida. It was only a matter of minutes before the people below found their memory clocks wound back to the days of World War II, when the skies buzzed with warplanes, when daring pilots sat high in their cockpits, fighting constantly, risking their lives to preserve freedom. Well over 3,000 people are convinced these planes and their stories should be captured in more than old movies. They're members of the Confederate Air Force, not flag-waving Southern Confederates, but rebels with a cause. Their cause, to preserve a part of America's aviation history. 20 years ago, a handful of pilots banded together when they learned no warbirds were being saved for posterity. They began pulling the machines out of scrap piles and farmyards. Now, 63 warbirds later, the CAF is aptly named the Ghost Squadron, and has wings in every state and in some foreign countries. Not even half of Florida's members served in the war, but their love for these warbirds makes sponsoring or maintaining them a full-time hobby. Each member is given the automatic rank of colonel.
The real purpose, Nancy, is to preserve all these airplanes that you see around you and the ones that are flying today, so that years from now they'll still be around and flying so that future generations can enjoy them. They won the war for us in 1939 and 1945, and instead of putting them in the scrap heap like they were doing, we have drug them out of the scrap heap, out of the swamps of all over the world, and have restored them to what you see today.
This is their annual air show. Colonel Bob Reed's 1939 Cadillac makes a line tour. The Flying Tiger, General Chennault's famous Warhawk. Battled Japanese Zeros, 10 left in the world. The P-51 Mustangs, stripes painted on wings signifying the Normandy invasion. One can't help but wonder, can these 35-year-old planes reenact the style that made them famous? Low flying, mock strafing, simulated bomb runs.
For most people today, the younger children haven't seen the types of planes we flew in World War II and don't know what Daddy did, and so it gets a chance for Dad to bring the kid up and show him what he used to fly, or what he used to be a crew chief on.
One of the youngest colonels is 17-year-old pilot Dale Whittington. His noisy Vultee vibrator is a BT-13 war trainer. He takes it and the CAF seriously.
Just a real challenge, that's all I can say. It's hard to explain until you fly a warbird. Then you get the feeling how it is. Brings on tradition. Other people that died in the service, I think I'm really into it. People that donated their lives fighting. It's all a very serious thing. Not many people consider it that way.
Averaging $8,500 and up to $120,000, CAF members consider their warbirds serious stuff. Dale can attest Flying warbirds is hard work. There's no time to relax. Even starting an engine means pumping levers.
These airplanes are so great to fly. It's like going from a Cadillac today and going back to a Model T Ford. You know, the people don't want to go back to the Model T Ford days, but they enjoy driving the car because they're driving it and the car isn't driving them. And this is the way it is with the airplanes. The airplanes have to be driven, they have to be flown, and you just can't get in there and push a few buttons. You got to really pump the levers, you know, and crank the gear up and things like that. You just don't do it with buttons.
Dale's brothers used elbow grease and thousands of dollars to transform their P-51 Mustang into the world's speed record holder, over 438 miles an hour.
You're on your toes all the time, and you're just very alert.
Does anything pass through your mind, like, I wonder what it was like back in the war?
Oh, that's true, because you think of adverse conditions they flew in, and, you know, the military, people shooting at you and different things. It would have to be super exciting.
Restoring these planes takes research. Ben Bradley Jr. uses his father's well-worn manual to rebuild his T-6 fighter. He paid $15,000 for this machine. Now he's customizing it from the ground up.
How difficult is it getting a part for this?
It only takes money. That's all it takes. There's two major places, one in California, one in Maryland, and they have stockpiles of parts for this airplane, T-51s, and everything else. This wing detaches right here from out that way. That wing, after the war, was maybe worth $50. Now it's worth $3,000.
The senior Ben Bradley doesn't like to tell war stories, yet he maintains a Sterling T-34, just like the one he used as a flight instructor during World War II.
Ben, why would you want to own your own plane, own warplane? What big thrill is in it for you?
Well, it's just something you never get over if you were in it, you know.
But doesn't it conjure up bad memories of the war?
Oh, no, it's fun. I was an instructor during the war. Taught Army, Navy, the whole thing, you know.
Ben's attitude is typical of CAF, not to glorify war, but to respect the men and the machines that were part of it. Author Marty Caden takes this philosophy a step further. Creator of the $6 Million Man and the Bionic Woman, his treasure is a $350,000 Ju-52 Junker, Iron Annie, reportedly one of Hitler's personal planes.
We found it rotting in the jungle. It was a real dinosaur. We got a broken piece of machinery. But probably the greatest airplane of its kind ever made. So we brought it up here 2 years ago. Went through a series of engine fires and minor disasters, and then we rebuilt the ship completely. And what you're seeing now is an airplane that's totally rebuilt from the ground up. This is just as strong. In fact, the airplane is as strong now, if not better, than the day it was built. And it's the strongest airplane of its kind ever made in the world. The Gold Eagle signifies that the airplane that's one or more times carried Adolf Hitler on several flights.
Do you think this was really his favorite plane, his own private plane?
We know it was. Now, he had a number of airplanes, and we know we spoke to two of the pilots who flew them in the ship itself. If every airplane you see out here is a privately owned machine paid for by guys out of their own pockets. And everybody in the Florida wing of the Confederate Air Force really contributes their own time and money to it. We think it's a thing well worth doing.
His Junker Airborne, Caden reviews with his crew what sounds like wartime strategy.
All right, I let the jumpers out. Two T-6s are making attacks, but clear those guys. All right, now, as soon as the jumpers are clear, you're going to stay in the air in orbit point. I'm going to land.
Right, I got it right.
When I land, I'm going to take off on 3-6, break out over the river.
No sooner had the shootists landed and the oohs and ahs subsided when the Jaybirds, the T-6 advanced trainers, roared by in formation. On their tails, CAF stunt pilot George Morris puts his T-6 into a dive and came back moments later to perform an 8-point roll, pausing as he made a complete revolution. Difficult maneuvers, but these planes were made to endure stress. World War II started and ended in the air. With these machines and possibly this kind of patriotism, the Confederate Air Force doesn't want anyone of any age to forget it. The Confederate Air Force encourages all to visit its museum in Harlingen, Texas. And all 100 colonels of the Florida wing welcome new members. Indeed, the number 592-6920, in Broward, 584-8100. The recent arrival of the lightweight, low-powered motorcycle, or moped, to Florida is both a delight and a burden. In 1976, the legislature defined it as a bicycle with a helper motor, putting no restriction on its use or ownership. Now, concern over safety has prompted demands for a law defining the moped as a motor vehicle. This would require owners to have a license and registration, but still leave them free from helmet requirements, insurance, and inspection. But no such bill has yet passed. And while lawmakers struggle with regulations, Floridians are fast discovering the freewheeling delights of riding a moped. Riding a moped combines the sensation of high speed with the slower open feeling of seeing and hearing everything around you. The moped was defined last year as a bicycle because it's limited to a speed of 25 miles per hour and an engine of 1.5 horsepower, both well below a motorcycle's standard. From the seat, it may feel safe and relaxing, but the Dade County Safety Council is concerned about mopeds.
The fact is no training or experience or knowledge of any kind is specifically required by anybody who wants to operate a moped on the public roads of Dade County. That means you not only don't have to have a license, but you don't have to know anything about the rules of the road or how to ride a bicycle, let alone a moped.
Safety isn't the only problem. Without some form of registration, police are helpless in tracking down stolen mopeds, and if violations or accidents occur, state records don't show it.
Even in the case where a motor vehicle is involved in a collision with a moped, that's correct. The moped would be listed in the statistical records as a bicycle and key punched that way, so that when the routine summaries are made, information retrieved would indicate the moped problem to be only a part of the bicycle problem. We'll never know how great the problem might be in Florida.
While the problems of regulation plague lawmakers, the moped's popularity is booming. Owners like Alan Price feel mopeds and Miami are a fine combination.
It's great in Miami if people accept the responsibility and don't let the youngsters have it, because I've noticed some youngsters riding them like they do the banana bikes where they rise up. So.
There are over 20 dealers in Dade County selling 20 different moped models. Negrini USA imports the bikes for the U.S. and Canada. They opened a year ago and bring in over 300 mopeds a month. One dealer, Dennis Wagner, says despite their first hesitant reaction, his customers are pleased with the moped.
Okay, Dennis, how long have you been selling bikes in Miami?
Mopeds I've been selling since July, approximately 9 months.
And how many bikes would you say that you sell a month?
I would say about 50 to 60 bikes per month.
And who do you think you sell them to? Could you describe your average moped customer?
It's hard to pinpoint. The 15-year-olds love them, the senior citizens love them, the over 65, the 30-year-olds love them. Everybody just seems to love mopeds, you know, riding around them and everything like that.
Who rides a moped? We discovered owners of all ages riding around Miami. Destinations vary from running errands, getting to and from work, to simply riding around and enjoying a nice Miami day. With 150 miles to the gallon and priced under $500, the moped is an attractive alternative for many people. Alan bought his a year ago and claims to have been the first moped owner in Florida.
As a matter of fact, I saw the front page of the Miami Herald of a girl sitting on a moped at the state capitol in Tallahassee, and I went right away and bought one. But they wouldn't let me take it because they said you had to have a license, you have to have a driver's license, you have to have all these different insurance. And I said, well, I've got all these, but I don't need them with a moped. And so it took me 13 phone calls, and it was finally okayed by the Florida Highway Patrol. And it was the first moped stolen in the state of Florida.
Being so new, there are problems. parts for the moped can only be bought from the dealers. And yet, repairs are simple enough that moped owners can choose to do their own maintenance at home.
And what about the engine itself? Could a novice learn to tune their own
Oh, absolutely.
moped?
I have housewives coming in and buying spark plug wrenches, and you know, if they want to know what they use to clean the engine and clean the bike and how to take care of it, and I explain everything to them, and they just love it. How to change a flat tire.
It is early yet, and what place the moped has in our family of motor vehicles is still uncertain. As more and more mopeds take to the streets, they'll face more tests and more scrutiny. But before long, this newcomer could find itself an acceptable place here in America.
The moped is a very interesting little vehicle which can indeed provide a viable alternative for many people who don't have the funds to provide themselves with a full-fledged automobile or even a full-fledged motorcycle for that matter. And I do not in any way really oppose the idea of mopeds. I think it's great. I think there's a real place for them. But I do think they should be reasonably regulated. I do think that they should be subjected to the same reasonable controls that owners and operators of other motor vehicles are subjected to.
Miami-Dade College has career paths in anything you want to be. What's your story? Be global. Be cutting edge. Be inventive. Be investigative. Be a hero. What do you want to be? Be the best. Be you. Be MDC.
When you become president, your family becomes famous as well. Now that may not be right, but it seems to be the case. And there's probably good reason for it. Anyone as close to the world's most powerful man as his family is will obviously have influence on him like few others. And so with that in mind, I recently talked with President Carter's number 2 son, 27-year-old Chip, who right now is in England representing the American people to the Queen of England.
You've been in some very high places to be 27, in the governor's mansion, now the White House. If you had to do all over again, would you tell your dad to run for the presidency?
Yes, sir.
Really?
I like politicking. I like meeting people. As long as my campaigning is a one-on-one basis where you go out and actually meet people and answer questions and talk to them, I really like it. When you put me in front of a crowd to make a speech, I get really nervous, so it's kind of tough to do that sometimes.
Still you get nervous?
Still.
Really? Are you married?
Yes, sir.
How's your wife like the whole scene?
Very much. She campaigned separately from me the whole campaign, and she's kind of laid back a little bit now. We've got a 3-month-old, and she's spending most of her time with him, but she hadn't really gotten a definite job in Washington yet. But
now you're living in the White House?
Right.
All right. Are you the one who told a friend of mine in California before the election you were going to wait and have your baby after you got in the White House so you'd have a maid to take care of it?
No, I didn't tell him that. Matter of fact, we have a maid there, but we pay her when she's not working, and she babysits for us at night sometimes when she's off.
Tell us about living there, the White House.
People don't believe it, but it's pretty much after the first month or so like living in any other house. I have 3 rooms on the 3rd floor that are mine and Karen's. We do all the work in the rooms, and we've put them together, and it's kind of like our apartment. My brother lives across the hall. It impresses you only when you bring people over and they're impressed,
yeah.
But otherwise it's just like a regular house. We very seldom go on the 1st floor, which is the museum type part. We don't live down there, so it's pretty normal.
I guess that it's normal to you, as you say, only for people. I mean, you look out the windows and you see Pennsylvania Avenue and people looking in. And
yeah, well, every morning they have the tours and they line up around the White House, and that kind of makes you a little nervous, wondering why they're coming there. But
well, you can't come down in your shorts. Or...
You can do almost anything you want to.
Yeah, well, I've got to look for you in these shorts. How do you think, I'm really struggling with what to really ask you that has meaning. I'm sure there's a lot of things that you have some opinions about from a very unique perspective. So you tell me, what kinds of things have you learned that have surprised you since you've been living in the White House and close to the President of the United States?
Well, Dad has always taken great pains to include his family in everything he does. And when he has a briefing, not a top secret one, but if he has a briefing like for the cabinet on foreign policy, then he invites us to come. Same thing with energy, and we try to find out as much as we can about what's going on. I work about 6 hours a day for Dad at the White House, so that I do get to learn, a lot of the issues and what he's doing, etc. So It's a pretty wide variety. It's limitless, actually, in the White House. You don't specialize on anything.
Can you just walk in the Oval Room whenever you want, or do you have to check with the secretaries?
I check to see if he's having a meeting. If he's not having a meeting, I can go in anytime.
Yeah. So I think everybody always wonders how the relationship changes with your father being the president. I guess it has to take on two faces. One, he is the president, which makes his time a little more different than it used to be. But still, he's your father, I guess.
He spends 2 or 3 hours a day with his family, with Mom or Amy, swimming with Amy or playing tennis with me or something. Eats his meals with us and that kind of thing. And it's a pretty normal family. I see my father a lot more than most people my age, because most people my age, live somewhere else, another town or something. And we have a very close relationship, and always have. And I hope we can always maintain what we've got going now.
Do you think the press has been fair with your father?
Pretty much. The press doesn't know all the background. When you come out against 19 water projects, the press doesn't know all the detail that you went into to find out, which ones are wasteful. So, those kind of things, it's kind of an education process that you have to do. But I think all in all, they have been fair.
Let me ask you just a couple of personal questions that I've always wanted to know. First of all, the carrying of the clothes bag. Why does he do that? On and off airplanes.
He always has. It's easier because you don't have to wait for the baggage to come out.
But somehow I think when you become president, people assume that someone will take care of that for you pretty quick. It's not the same that flying Air Force One as it used to be on Eastern.
Well, he gets off the airplane and goes and gets in the car. And he comes out that front door by himself most of the time because of Secret Service. And if somebody has to come out the back door, then he has to wait when he gets to the car for somebody to put in there. And he doesn't mind carrying his own clothes bag.
Well, I know it sounds nitpicky to talk about it, but I hear a lot of people say, well, that's phony, Jimmy Carter's trying to put on an act, he's just Mr. Nice Guy and humble. And I've heard other people say, no, I think it's an effort to try and maintain some touch with reality and not be monarch-like. And I wonder what your observation
I don't think there's any symbolism at all in him carrying his own clothes bag.
Or the cardigan sweater, there's others.
No, there has been symbolism in some of it, but as far as the clothes bag goes, it's something he's always done, and why should he have to change it just because he's president? The cardigan sweater thing was because he's trying to get people to wear sweaters in their homes because he wanted them to turn down their heat, and that was a symbolism. But I don't think the clothes bag, and most of the things he does, he just does it because he's always done it and doesn't see why he has to change now.
We talked about the press's sometimes inordinate interest in the dwellers of the White House, and that brought us to some questions about 8-year-old Amy.
I wish, for example, the press, and we have editorialized it here at the station, would leave your little sister alone and let her be a normal kid and just forget about her, because...
They've done it to a degree. The day after Amy started school, Dad had a press conference, and he opened up the press conference by asking they not cover her going to school anymore, that he wanted her to go there and be just like everybody else. And they pretty well stayed away from that. Her school takes some field trips, and the only time they bother her at school is when they take a field trip.
Now, Chip, I've heard it said that that's phony, that your parents sending Amy to a public school, that public school is just showboating. What do you say?
Amy has always gone to public schools when she was in Atlanta, when she was in Plains, and he didn't see any reason to change. Dad was always a very strong supporter of public schools, and I think coming from South Georgia, private school kind of has a connotation to it. They started a lot of them for racist reasons. There are some good private schools in South Georgia. I'm not cutting down all of them.
Sure.
But it's still that connotation, that frame of mind that you're in. And I think that Dad would very much hope that by him doing that, maybe it's a symbolism, but maybe more congressmen and senators will put their children in private schools, and then maybe the Washington school system will get better.
In public schools?
Public school system will get better.
Right.
And if they put them in public schools, I think it will. So he kind of started it, and I hope the trend will continue. Several congressmen have followed his lead since he did it.
Well, has it hurt Amy so far that you can see?
No, she's getting a fantastic education. She's at home a lot. If there's anything that she needs supplementing in that particular school doesn't provide, then we help her.
Mm-hmm.
But if she was going to a private school, there would be things that the school didn't provide.
Is Amy spoiled?
No. I think if you're ever around her, you wouldn't think she was.
Well, I don't know. I've seen a little thing. She seems to be, from very limited exposure I've seen on television, which is unfair because, but I was thinking, all of her brothers older, and a later child in life. Sometimes it's a classic way for a kid to be spoiled.
She's not spoiled. She does not like press, period. Yeah, she wants to do her own thing.
Well, now
and
why?
she doesn't like a camera flashing at her, and she wants to be with her friends and just be Amy Carter. And so that when she's in front of the press, then she sometimes acts, you know, haughty and I don't want to be here type situation,
right.
which is exactly what it is. She doesn't want to be there, but she's not spoiled. She's just telling you how she feels.
Miami-Dade College has career paths in anything you want to be. What's your story? Be global. Be cutting edge. Be inventive. Be investigative. Be a hero. What do you want to be? Be the best. Be you. Be MDC.
Venereal disease is still a raging epidemic, and Florida leads the nation in reported syphilis cases. Why? We'll look into that question next week. We'll also take you behind the scenes in the glamorous and surprisingly laborious life of a professional photographer. And Joe April's guest will be Dr. Frank Stanton, the former president of CBS. That's our montage for tonight. This is Ralph Rennick. Good evening.
All right, I let the jumpers out. 2 T6s are making attacks, but clear those guys. All right, now, as soon as the jumpers are clear, you're going to stay in the air at orbit point. I'm going to land. Right. Right. When I land, I'm going to take off on 3-6, break out over the river. So you.
That's about it for this edition of Rewind. Just time to remind you that Rewind features historical film and video from the Lynn and Lewis Wolfson II Florida Moving Image Archives. To see more from the Wolfson Archives collections, visit our website, wolfsonarchives.org. You can search the archives catalog and watch video online. And be sure to connect to our YouTube channel, where you will find hundreds of carefully curated clips, or link to the Wolfson Archives Facebook page to keep up with our busy calendar of historical happenings. Until next time, I'm Rene Ramos. Thanks for watching.